They say you can't choose your family, but I always thought I had. The family I chose wasn't bound by blood, but by something I thought was much stronger: a decade of shared laughter, late-night secrets, and cheap pizza eaten on the floor of our first crappy apartments. My friends Chloe, Liam, and Olivia weren't just my friends. They were my everything, my support system, my emergency contacts, my home. And that's what made the goodbye so much harder. I was standing in the middle of my nearly empty living room, surrounded by cardboard boxes and the ghosts of my old life. A single picture frame was left on the wall. It was a photo of the four of us from a few summers ago, suntanned and grinning, arms slung around each other on a beach trip, looking at it. My heart felt a familiar, bittersweet ache. I was about to start the biggest adventure of my life, but I had to leave my whole world behind to do it. At least, that's what I thought my world was. In reality, it was a beautifully constructed stage, and I was the only one who didn't know the play was a tragedy. Have you ever had a friend group that felt more like family than your actual family? The kind of people you knew, deep in your bones, would be there for you no matter what. It's the best feeling in the world, or at least, I thought it was. If you've ever had a friendship that turned out to be a lie, give this video a thumbs up, because you're about to feel very, very seen. The reason for the boxes and the bittersweet ache was a job offer, not just any job offer. The job offer. I'm a museum curator, specializing in Renaissance art, my entire life. I had dreamed of working at the Met in New York. It was the pinnacle, the big league, and after a grueling 6-month application process, I had gotten it. A position as an associate curator in their European paintings department. It was a dream so big I had barely dared to speak it aloud, and now it was real. The only downside, the one massive, heartbreaking catch, was that it meant leaving the city I had called home for 10 years, and the people who had made it feel that way. We had all met in college, a strange little quartet of misfits who found each other in a massive university. I was the quiet, nerdy art history major. Chloe was the sharp, ambitious political science student who seemed to know everyone. She took me under her wing, drew me out of my shell. She was the leader of our group, the planner, the one who always knew what to do. When I went through a soul-crushing breakup in our senior year, Chloe was the one who showed up at my door with a bottle of tequila, a tub of ice cream, and a detailed, profanity-laced agenda for my recovery. She was my rock. Liam and Olivia were a package deal. High school sweethearts who had been together forever. They were the warm, easygoing heart of our group. Liam was a goofy, lovable engineer who could fix anything, and Olivia was a kind, gentle soul who was studying to be a teacher. Our foursome just worked. We spent our 20s navigating the messy, confusing world of post-grad life together. We celebrated every new job, every new apartment. We mourned every loss. We spent holidays together when we couldn't afford to fly home to our actual families. They were the witnesses to my life, the keepers of my history. When I told them I got the job in New York, their reaction was everything I could have hoped for. We were at our favorite dive bar, the one with the sticky floors and the best jukebox in the city. I made the announcement, my voice trembling with a mixture of excitement and terror, and they exploded. "Oh my God!" Chloe screamed, leaping out of her seat to throw her arms around me. "That's incredible, the Met. I knew you could do it." "That is absolutely amazing," Liam said, his face breaking into a huge, proud grin. "We are so, so proud of you," Olivia added, her eyes already welling up with tears. "But we're going to miss you so much." And that was the theme of the following weeks. Their support was a tidal wave. They were my biggest cheerleaders. But beneath the pride, there was a current of sadness that I felt, too. "We were breaking up the band. We have to throw you the most epic going-away party in the history of the world," Chloe had declared a week later. She had, of course, taken charge of the entire operation. Not a sad little get-together, a real blowout. "At our bar, we'll invite everyone we know. We have to send you off in style." And that's what tonight was supposed to be. My last supper, a final, big, loud, joyful celebration of our friendship, before I packed up my life and moved 1,000 miles away. As I finished getting ready, I felt that familiar bittersweet ache return. I was excited for the party, but it felt so Final. I looked around my empty apartment. All that was left was the cleaning supplies and that one framed photo, which I now carefully took down from the wall. I wrapped it in bubble wrap and placed it gently in a box labeled important. I put on the new dress I'd bought for the occasion. A simple, elegant black dress that made me feel confident and grown up. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I felt a surge of gratitude so intense it almost brought me to tears. How many people were lucky enough to have a friendship like this, a chosen family that celebrated your successes so fiercely? That was so sad to see you go. I was leaving. But I was leaving rich in the one currency that truly mattered: love. The bar was already packed when I arrived. Chloe had outdone herself. She had reserved the entire back room. There were balloons. A banner that read, "NYC isn't ready for you, Maya." And a playlist of all our favorite songs from the last decade already blasting from the speakers. The moment I walked in, a cheer went up, one by one. My friends, my colleagues, all the people from my city life came up to hug me, to wish me well, and in the center of it all were Chloe, Liam, and Olivia, beaming at me like proud parents. "Surprise," Chloe said, hugging me tightly. Well, not really a surprise, but still. "Do you love it?" "I love it," I said, my voice thick. "You guys are the best." "Of course, we are," she said with a wink. "Now, go, mingle. Your adoring public awaits. Speeches are at 10. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind of happy, sad, and nostalgic conversations. I reminisced with old colleagues. I promised college friends I would visit. I laughed until my sides hurt, but my home base for the night was always the booth where my 3 best friends were holding court. We told old stories. We laughed at inside jokes. We remembered the people we used to be and celebrated the people we were becoming. It was perfect. At 10 o'clock, just as promised, Chloe stood up and clinked her glass for attention. The room quieted down. My heart swelled with a mixture of love and a sad sort of stage fright. This was it, the goodbye. And Chloe, my rock, my leader, my fiercely loyal best friend, delivered a speech that was a work of art. She spoke of the day we met, a shy, nerdy girl hiding in the back of a lecture hall. She told funny, embarrassing, and deeply loving stories about our adventures together. She talked about my passion for my work, my quiet strength, my unwavering loyalty as a friend. "To say that we're going to miss Maya," she said, her voice beginning to crack, her eyes shining with tears, "is the world's biggest understatement. You're not just our friend, Maya. You are our family. You're the smart one, the steady one, the one we all secretly want to be when we grow up." She looked directly at me. "New York is so incredibly lucky to have you. But don't you ever forget about the little people you're leaving behind. This city, and our lives, will be so much dimmer without you in it. We are so proud of you. And we love you more than words can say." She raised her glass, her hand trembling, to Maya. To Maya, the entire room roared back. I was openly crying now, tears of pure, unadulterated love and gratitude streaming down my face. This was friendship. This was love. This was real. Liam and Olivia followed with their own short, sweet, tearful tributes. By the time they were done, I was a wreck, completely overwhelmed by the love in that room. The 4 of us were huddled together in a massive group hug, all of us crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you guys so much," I managed to choke out. "We love you more," Chloe whispered in my ear, as we finally pulled apart. Emotionally exhausted and happy, I sat back down in the booth. My phone was on the table where I had left it, next to my drink. And as I reached for a napkin to wipe my tears, it lit up. The screen was dark, but a series of notifications, little white banners, popped up in quick succession on the lock screen. It was from our group chat, or what I thought was our group chat. The name at the top was the Trinity, a chat I wasn't in. A chat with only 3 members, Chloe, Liam, and Olivia. My brain was still fuzzy from the emotion of the speeches, and for a second, the words didn't register. I just saw their names, and then snippets of the messages they were sending, right at that very moment. Chloe, OMG, she's actually crying. I am a phenomenal actress. Liam, lol, you really laid it on thick. the one we all want to be when we grow up. Olivia, I almost broke when you said that. Was trying so hard not to laugh. Chloe, guys, shut up, she'll see. But seriously, thank God she's finally leaving. I can't take another year of her perfect life. Liam, for real, countdown till we get our city back starts now. The world stopped. The loud music, the laughter, the buzz of the party, it all just ceased to exist. There was only the glowing white text on the dark screen of my phone. I read the messages again, and then a third time. But the words didn't change. My brain, which had been full of love and gratitude just seconds before, was now a silent, echoing chamber of pure, cold horror. This was a joke. It had to be a joke. A sick, cruel, impossible joke. I looked up from my phone. Across the table, Chloe was watching me, a look of tearful, loving sympathy still perfectly arranged on her face. She saw me looking at my phone, and for a split second, a flash of pure, cold panic crossed her features before she could hide it. She knew what I had just seen, and in that moment, I knew it was real. The beautiful, moving tribute to our friendship was a lie. Her tears were a lie. Their love was a lie. My entire chosen family was a beautifully constructed, decade-long fraud. And I was still at my own going-away party, trapped, surrounded by the smiling faces of the people who apparently hated my guts. The back room of the Salty Dog, our favorite dive bar, was so packed with people I loved that the air itself felt warm and thick with history. Chloe had worked her magic. She had managed to gather every stray from every chapter of my life. My awkward lab partner from freshman year of college, the loud, boisterous team from my first real job, the quiet couple from my yoga class, and all the friends in between. It was like watching the last 10 years of my life flash before my eyes. Only everyone was holding a beer. I spent the first 2 hours of the party in a happy, nostalgic daze. Every few feet, I was pulled into another hug, another conversation that started with, "Do you remember when?" We remembered the time we all tried to cram into Liam's tiny car for a spontaneous road trip. We remembered the disastrous Friendsgiving, where I had set off the fire alarm trying to deep fry a turkey. We remembered the nights spent studying in the library, the cheap apartments, the bad dates, the small victories. It was a highlight reel of our shared lives, and it was beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Through it all, my trio, my chosen family, was my anchor. Liam kept my drink full. Olivia made sure I ate something besides potato chips. And Chloe was the master of ceremonies, directing traffic, making introductions, and ensuring I was the undisputed center of this loving universe. I felt so cherished, so deeply and completely seen, that the sadness of leaving felt like a fair price to pay for having had this at all. At 10 o'clock, a hush fell over the room as Chloe, true to her word, stood on a chair and clinked a beer bottle with a spoon. "All right, you animals, listen up," she called out, her voice full of the easy, charismatic authority she always commanded. A grin was plastered on her face. "For those of you who don't know, I'm Chloe, and I have the very difficult, very sad job tonight of trying to put into words how much this amazing woman, our Maya, means to us." She looked at me, and her smile softened into something that looked so much like genuine, tearful affection that my own eyes immediately started to well up. "I met Maya on the first day of college," she began. She was hiding in the back of a massive Art History 101 lecture, trying her best to become invisible. I was a loud, obnoxious poli-sci major who had decided to take the class for an easy A. She laughed. I sat down next to her because she looked like she had her life together. She had organized notes. I had a hangover. I figured I needed some of that in my life. The crowd chuckled, and I was right. Chloe continued. I did need her. We all did, over the next decade. Maya became the quiet, steady center of our little universe, the one with the common sense, the one who remembered your birthday, who would bring you soup when you were sick, who would listen to you cry about the same stupid boy for the 40th time without ever once saying, "I told you so," even though she was always right. I was already crying, silent, happy tears tracing paths down my cheeks. "And then we had to watch her go through the hardest time of her life," Chloe said, her voice dropping, becoming more serious. She was talking about my brutal breakup in senior year, a relationship that had ended in a way that had left my self-esteem in tatters. And I remember finding her in her apartment, a complete and total wreck. She thought her world had ended. And I knew, in that moment, that my own life would have to go on hold for a bit, because my number one job was to help her piece her world back together. I remembered that time. I remembered her showing up with tequila and ice cream, her fierce loyalty a shield against my pain. Hearing her recount it now, as an act of selfless love, made my heart ache with gratitude. And look at her now, Chloe said, her voice swelling with pride as she gestured toward me. She didn't just piece her world back together. She built an empire. She got her master's degree. She became a brilliant curator. And now she's leaving us for the freaking Metropolitan Museum of Art. The Met, it's insane. It's terrifying. We're all a little scared for her. A small-town girl moving to the big city all by herself. She laughed, and the crowd laughed with her. A warm, affectionate sound. But we're not really scared, she said, her own eyes now glistening with real tears. Because we know her, we know the strength and the fire she has inside her. And we know that she is going to take New York City by storm. But that doesn't mean we're not going to miss her like crazy. Her voice finally cracked. Maya, you are not just my best friend. You are my sister, my chosen sister, and a huge part of me, of all of us, is leaving with you. This city won't be the same. We won't be the same. I am so proud of you, it hurts. We love you more than words can say. She raised her bottle. To Maya, the future of the art world. The room erupted. To Maya, everyone roared back. I was a complete mess, ugly crying into a cocktail napkin, so overwhelmed with love and emotion I could barely breathe. Liam and Olivia went next. Their speeches were shorter, but no less heartfelt. Olivia, ever the sweet one, cried through her entire tribute. Maya's the sensible one, she said, her voice wobbly. She's the one I always called when I needed real advice. I don't know who I'm going to call now. Liam told a funny story about a camping trip where I had been the only one who had remembered to bring a can opener, effectively saving them all from a dinner of cold beans. She's always been the one looking out for us, the one with her head on straight, he concluded, his own voice thick. We're all going to be a little lost without her. By the time they were finished, I was emotionally wrung out. The four of us came together in the center of the room in a massive, tearful, laughing group hug. It was a moment of pure, cinematic friendship. My arms were wrapped around the three most important people in my life. Their love was a tangible thing, a warm, protective bubble. I felt safe. I felt cherished. I felt like the luckiest person on the planet. I love you guys so much, I managed to say through my sobs. I'm going to miss you more than you know. We love you more, Chloe whispered in my ear, squeezing me tighter. We finally broke apart, wiping our eyes, laughing at the state of our mascara-streaked faces. I sat back down in our booth, my heart so full I thought it might actually burst. I felt a deep, profound sense of peace. This was what real love felt like. This was a bond that could withstand distance, a friendship that would last a lifetime. I looked at their faces, still shining with what I was so sure was love for me. Chloe, Liam, Olivia, my rocks, my family. The story I had told myself about us for the last 10 years felt truer than ever in that moment. I picked up my drink, ready to raise it in a silent toast to the incredible, beautiful, painful, perfect friendship we shared. I was going to toast to the future, a future that I knew, no matter how many miles separated us, would always include them. And that's when my phone lit up. It was on the table, face up, right next to my glass. I had left it there when the speeches started. It lit up with the telltale glow of a new notification. And in that one, single, solitary second, as my eyes flickered down to the screen, the entire 10-year history of our friendship was revealed to be a lie. My past, my present, and my future were all incinerated in the cold, white light of a single, glowing message. The back room of the Salty Dog, our favorite dive bar, was so packed with people I loved that the air itself felt warm and thick with history. Chloe had worked her magic. She had managed to gather every stray from every chapter of my life, my awkward lab partner from freshman year of college, the loud, boisterous team from my first real job, the quiet couple from my yoga class, and all the friends in between. It was like watching the last 10 years of my life flash before my eyes. Only everyone was holding a beer. I spent the first 2 hours of the party in a happy, nostalgic daze. Every few feet, I was pulled into another hug, another conversation that started with, "Do you remember when?" We remembered the time we all tried to cram into Liam's tiny car for a spontaneous road trip. We remembered the disastrous Friendsgiving where I had set off the fire alarm trying to deep fry a turkey. We remembered the nights spent studying in the library, the cheap apartments, the bad dates, the small victories. It was a highlight reel of our shared lives, and it was beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Through it all, my trio, my chosen family, was my anchor. Liam kept my drink full. Olivia made sure I ate something besides potato chips, and Chloe was the master of ceremonies, directing traffic, making introductions, and ensuring I was the undisputed center of this loving universe. I felt so cherished, so deeply and completely seen, that the sadness of leaving felt like a fair price to pay for having had this at all. At 10 o'clock, a hush fell over the room as Chloe, true to her word, stood on a chair and clinked a beer bottle with a spoon. "All right, you animals. Listen up," she called out, her voice full of the easy, charismatic authority she always commanded. A grin was plastered on her face. "For those of you who don't know, I'm Chloe, and I have the very difficult, very sad job tonight of trying to put into words how much this amazing woman, our Maya, means to us." She looked at me, and her smile softened into something that looked so much like genuine, tearful affection that my own eyes immediately started to well up. "I met Maya on the first day of college," she began. She was hiding in the back of a massive Art History 101 lecture, trying her best to become invisible. I was a loud, obnoxious poli-sci major who had decided to take the class for an easy A. She laughed. I sat down next to her because she looked like she had her life together. She had organized notes. I had a hangover. I figured I needed some of that in my life. The crowd chuckled, and I was right. Chloe continued. "I did need her, we all did, over the next decade. Maya became the quiet, steady center of our little universe, the one with the common sense, the one who remembered your birthday, who would bring you soup when you were sick, who would listen to you cry about the same stupid boy for the 40th time without ever once saying, 'I told you so.' Even though she was always right, I was already crying, silent, happy tears tracing paths down my cheeks. And then we had to watch her go through the hardest time of her life," Chloe said, her voice dropping, becoming more serious. She was talking about my brutal breakup in senior year, a relationship that had ended in a way that had left my self-esteem in tatters. And I remember finding her in her apartment, a complete and total wreck. She thought her world had ended, and I knew, in that moment, that my own life would have to go on hold for a bit, because my number one job was to help her piece her world back together. I remembered that time. I remembered her showing up with tequila and ice cream, her fierce loyalty a shield against my pain. Hearing her recount it now, as an act of selfless love, made my heart ache with gratitude. "And look at her now," Chloe said, her voice swelling with pride as she gestured toward me. "She didn't just piece her world back together, she built an empire. She got her master's degree. She became a brilliant curator. And now she's leaving us for the freaking Metropolitan Museum of Art. The Met. It's insane. It's terrifying. We're all a little scared for her, a small-town girl in the big city all by herself." She laughed, and the crowd laughed with her, a warm, affectionate sound. "But we're not really scared," she said, her own eyes now glistening with real tears. "Because we know her. We know the strength and the fire she has inside her. And we know that she is going to take New York City by storm. But that doesn't mean we're not going to miss her like crazy." Her voice finally cracked. "Maya, you are not just my best friend. You are my sister, my chosen sister. And a huge part of me, of all of us, is leaving with you. This city won't be the same. We won't be the same. I am so proud of you, it hurts. We love you more than words can say." She raised her bottle. To Maya, the entire room roared back. I was a complete mess. ugly crying into a cocktail napkin. So overwhelmed with love and emotion, I could barely breathe. This was friendship. This was love. This was real. Liam and Olivia went next. Their speeches were shorter, but no less heartfelt. Olivia, ever the sweet one, cried through her entire tribute. Maya's the sensible one, she said. Her voice wobbly. She's the one I always called when I needed real advice. I don't know who I'm going to call now. Liam told a funny story about a camping trip where I had been the only one who had remembered to bring a can opener, effectively saving them all from a dinner of cold beans. She's always been the one looking out for us, the one with her head on straight, he concluded, his own voice thick. We're all going to be a little lost without her. By the time they were done, I was emotionally wrung out. The four of us came together in the center of the room in a massive, tearful, laughing group hug. It was a moment of pure, cinematic friendship. My arms were wrapped around the three most important people in my life. Their love was a tangible thing, a warm, protective bubble. I felt safe. I felt cherished. I felt like the luckiest person on the planet. I love you guys so much, I managed to say through my sobs. I'm going to miss you more than you know. We love you more, Chloe whispered in my ear, squeezing me tighter. We finally broke apart, wiping our eyes, laughing at the state of our mascara-streaked faces. I sat back down in our booth, my heart so full I thought it might actually burst. I felt a deep, profound sense of peace. This was what real love felt like. This was a bond that could withstand distance, a friendship that would last a lifetime. I looked at their faces, still shining with what I was so sure was love for me. Chloe, Liam, Olivia, my rocks, my family. The story I had told myself about us for the last 10 years felt truer than ever in that moment. I picked up my drink, ready to raise it in a silent toast to the incredible, beautiful, painful, perfect friendship we shared. I was going to toast to the future, a future that I knew, no matter how many miles separated us, would always include them. And that's when my phone, which I had left face up on the sticky bar table, lit up, and my past, present, and future were all incinerated in a single, glowing notification. My heart was a supernova of joy. I sat back down in the sticky vinyl booth, my face wet with happy tears, my spirit soaring. I was so full of love for my friends, for my chosen family, that it felt like a physical warmth spreading through my chest. I looked at their smiling, tear-streaked faces across the table. Chloe, Liam, Olivia, and I thought to myself, this is the pinnacle. This is the moment I will remember forever. And I was right about that. I will remember that moment for the rest of my life, just not for the reasons I thought. As I reached for my drink, my hand shaking slightly from the emotional high, my phone, which was lying face up on the table, lit up. It was a simple thing, a screen illuminating in a dark, loud bar, but it was a flash of lightning that illuminated the truth and set my entire world on fire. I glanced down, my eyes still blurry with tears. I saw a series of notifications pop up on the lock screen, one after another, like a string of firecrackers. They were from a group chat. The name at the top was the Trinity. That's weird, I thought vaguely. I'm not in a group chat called the Trinity. It was the three of them, I supposed. A little subgroup for planning the party, probably. Then I saw the names next to the message previews, and I read the words. The first banner that appeared was from Chloe, my rock, my fierce, loyal protector. Chloe, OMG, she's actually crying. I am a phenomenal actress. My brain stuttered. It was like a computer trying to process a corrupted file. The sentence did not compute. Actress. It had to be a joke, a reference to something I didn't understand. Then the next banner popped up, from Liam. Liam lol, you really laid it on thick. The one we all want to be when we grow up. The word lol was a tiny digital dagger. He was laughing. He was mocking her speech, mocking me. Then Olivia, my sweet, gentle Olivia. Olivia, I almost broke when you said that, was trying so hard not to laugh. The room began to tilt. The loud music of the bar, the laughter, the shouting, it all began to fade into a distant, underwater roar. My entire focus narrowed to the horrifying, glowing rectangle on the table. And then came the final two messages. The killing blows. Chloe, guys, shut up, she'll see. But seriously, thank God she's finally leaving. I can't take another year of her perfect life. Liam, for real, countdown till we get our city back starts now. Time stopped. My heart, which had been soaring just moments before, felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. I read the messages again, and a third time. I was willing my brain to misunderstand, to find another explanation. Maybe this was a different Maya. Maybe they were talking about a character on a TV show. It was a desperate, futile attempt to hold on to the world that had existed 60 seconds ago. Thank God she's finally leaving. Countdown till we get our city back starts now. There was no other explanation. The beautiful, tearful, loving speeches were a performance. The hugs were a lie, the friendship. My entire 10-year chosen family was a meticulously crafted, elaborate fraud. They didn't love me. They didn't see me as their sister. They saw me as a burden they were celebrating finally being rid of. They weren't sad I was leaving. They were overjoyed. And the source of it all, the reason for their hatred, was right there in Chloe's text, my perfect life, my success, the dream job I had worked my entire life for. The very thing they were pretending to celebrate tonight was actually the source of their resentment. They hadn't been cheering me on. They had been gritting their teeth, their smiles a mask for the jealousy that was eating them alive. And in that moment of horrifying clarity, the last 10 years of my life began to re-spool in my head. But this time, I was watching it through a new, ugly, clarifying filter. Every memory was now tainted, corrupted by this new, terrible truth. Chloe, showing up with tequila and ice cream after my big college breakup. I had seen it as an act of selfless friendship. Now, I saw it differently. I saw her reveling in my drama, enjoying my pain. My heartbreak had made her the hero, the strong one, the savior. She hadn't been lifting me up. She had been feeding on my failure. The hundreds of times they had encouraged me, celebrated my small successes on the path to my career. Had they been proud, or had they just been placating me, confident that a girl like me would never actually make it, that I'd stay right here in this city, in this bar, in this life that they controlled? My success at the Met wasn't a victory they shared. It was a betrayal of their narrative, a script I had dared to rewrite. All the little things, the backhanded compliments, the subtle digs I had always dismissed, now came flooding back, each one a fresh stab of pain. You're so lucky you're smart, Maya, because you were never the fashionable one. Chloe, last year, a joke. It must be nice to have a job where you just get to look at pretty pictures all day. Liam, 2 years ago, a joke. I could never move to a big city all by myself. I'm not brave like you. Olivia, last month. A statement I had taken as a compliment, but which I now understood to be an accusation of my arrogance. They weren't jokes. They weren't compliments. They were leaks, little drops of the poison of their resentment, seeping out from the cracks in their perfect, friendly facades. My entire friendship with them, the central pillar of my adult life, was a lie. I had thought I was a founding member of a loving family. It turns out I was just the court jester, there for their amusement, and the person whose back they all stabbed the moment I turned around. A wave of nausea so intense it made the room spin washed over me. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands, resting on the table, felt cold and numb, like they belonged to someone else. I was having an out-of-body experience, floating somewhere near the ceiling of the bar, watching this poor, pathetic girl whose life had just been detonated by a series of text messages. I looked up, my eyes slowly focusing on the scene across the table. They were all watching me, their expressions carefully arranged into masks of loving concern. Chloe must have seen my eyes fix on my phone. She must have seen the color drain from my face, because I saw it again, that flicker of pure, animal panic in her eyes before she could smooth it over. That flicker was the final confirmation. It was the nail in the coffin of my old life. "You okay, sweetie?" she asked, her voice a perfect imitation of the loving friend she had been playing just moments before. The voice now sounded like nails on a chalkboard to me. "You still look a little emotional from the speeches. We really got you, didn't we?" "Oh, you got me," I thought. A hysterical laugh bubbling up inside me, a laugh I had to physically swallow back down. "You really, really got me. I had to say something. I had to perform. My own survival depended on it. I looked at her, at the woman I had thought of as my sister, at this complete and utter stranger, and I forced the muscles in my face to form a smile. It was the hardest physical act of my life. Yeah, I managed to croak, my voice sounding watery and weak, which I prayed they would interpret as continued emotional overflow. I'm just so overwhelmed. I can't believe it. You guys are just the best. Chloe's face relaxed into a relieved, brilliant smile. My performance was a success. She believed me. Of course. We are, she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand. Her touch felt like being branded with a hot iron. We'd do anything for you. I pulled my hand back, pretending to wipe away a tear. I was trapped. I was at my own going-away party, a celebration that was actually a funeral for a friendship that had never been real. I was surrounded by my closest friends, who were actually my most bitter enemies. I had to get through the rest of the night. I had to smile. I had to laugh. I had to accept their hugs and their well wishes, all while knowing that they were counting down the seconds until I was gone. The shock, the raw, explosive pain of the initial discovery, began to recede, and in its place, something else began to form, a feeling I had never experienced before. It was a grief so absolute it felt like a death, and it was an anger so cold, so pure, so quiet. It felt like a shard of ice forming in my heart. The old Maya, the trusting, loving, naive Maya, had died in this booth, and a new Maya was being born. She was cold, she was clear-eyed, and she was utterly, completely alone. My party was scheduled to go on for another 2 hours, and I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that my only job now was to survive it. I had to keep smiling, I had to keep acting, and I had to figure out how to walk out of this bar, and out of their lives, without letting them see that they had just shown me the ugly, rotten truth that lay beneath the beautiful, glittering surface of our lie. The human brain is a remarkable, terrifying thing. In the space of about 30 seconds, mine had processed an extinction-level event, cataloged the damage, and initiated a survival protocol. The protocol was simple: act normal. Do not let them know that you know. Your life depends on it. So, as Chloe looked at me, her face a perfect mask of loving concern, I smiled back. It was the hardest smile of my life. It felt like it was made of glass. I was terrified it would shatter if I held it for too long. Yeah, I said, my voice miraculously steady. I gestured vaguely at my tear-streaked face. You guys you really got me. I'm just so overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. My explanation was perfect. It was the truth. Just not the one they thought. I was overwhelmed, and I truly didn't know what to say. Chloe's face relaxed into a look of genuine relief. My performance was successful. She believed me. Oh, sweetie, she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand again. Her touch was electric, a jolt of revulsion that I had to force myself not to recoil from. We know. We just love you so much. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. I was trapped in the back room of a loud, crowded bar, at a party that was supposed to be in my honor, surrounded by people who despised me. It was a surreal, waking nightmare. Every laugh felt like a threat. Every smiling face looked like a mask. You know that feeling in a horror movie when the main character finally realizes the terrifying phone call is coming from inside the house? That was me. I had been living in the house for 10 years. And the monsters weren't just in the house with me. They were the people I thought were my family. I had to survive, so I put on the performance of a lifetime. I deployed what I now call my going-away party smile. It was brilliant. It was happy. It was tinged with the perfect amount of bittersweet, nostalgic sadness. And it was a complete and utter fabrication, a shield I constructed around the screaming, shattered ruin of my heart. People came up to me, my real friends, the ones who were genuinely sad to see me go. They would hug me, and I would hug them back, my smile fixed in place. We're going to miss you so much, Maya, they'd say. I'm going to miss you more, I'd reply, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. Every genuine expression of love from them was a fresh twist of the knife, a reminder of the falseness of the 3 people who were supposed to be my core. I was mourning a decade-long friendship in real time, while simultaneously pretending to be the guest of honor at a celebration of it. The cognitive dissonance was so profound it made me feel dizzy. The worst moments were when one of the Trinity, as I now thought of them, would approach me. They were buoyed by the success of their speeches, confident in their deception. Chloe, of course, was the most brazen. She pulled me away from a conversation for a private moment by the jukebox. She took both of my hands in hers, her grip warm and firm, her eyes, which I now saw were as cold and as empty as a winter sky, were filled with expertly feigned tears. "Promise me you'll call," she said, her voice a low, emotional whisper. "I'm not joking, Maya. Promise me. I don't know what I'm going to do without you. Who am I going to call when I have a work crisis? Who is going to tell me when my outfit looks terrible?" I looked at her face, the face of the woman I had trusted with every secret I had ever had. And I saw the actress. I saw the phenomenal actress she had bragged about being in her text message. She was good. She was very, very good. "Of course, I'll call," I lied, my voice a perfect imitation of choked-up sincerity. "Probably every day. You'll get sick of me." "Never," she said, pulling me into another hug. I let my body go limp in her arms, enduring her touch. The feeling of her perfumed hair against my cheek. I could feel her backstabbing hand patting my back. It was all I could do not to shudder. Later, Liam and Olivia cornered me by the bar. They were a united front of cheerful, loving lies. "Okay, so we've already been looking at flights," Liam said, his goofy, lovable grin now looking like a predatory rictus. "We're thinking we'll come visit you in New York in October. See the fall colors. We can't go too long without our Maya fix." "Oh my God, we have to," Olivia chimed in, her eyes wide and seemingly full of excitement. "We can help you decorate your new apartment. It will be so much fun." The countdown till they got their city back had apparently been paused for this brief, fictional travel planning session. "I would love that more than anything in the world," I said. And the lie was so smooth, so practiced. It scared me. A part of me had already become as good a performer as they were. As I was speaking to them, my eyes flickered over Liam's shoulder. I saw Chloe, standing across the room, talking to someone else. She thought no one was watching her. She caught my eye for a split second, and then she looked over at Liam and Olivia, who were still talking to me, and she rolled her eyes, a tiny, almost imperceptible gesture, a gesture of boredom, of annoyance, a gesture that said, "Can you believe we still have to keep this up?" It was another confirmation, another piece of evidence. My mind was no longer a swirling mess of pain. It was a cold, quiet courtroom, and I was the prosecutor, silently, methodically, building my case. The performance was taking its toll. My face actually hurt from the effort of holding my smile in place. My laugh sounded brittle and fake even to my own ears. I felt like a spy who had been behind enemy lines for too long. I was starting to lose myself in the role. I knew, with a rising sense of panic, that I couldn't stay until the end of the party. I had to escape. I needed an excuse, a plausible one, a reason that would fit their narrative of me as the emotional, overwhelmed, beloved friend. And then it hit me. I would use their own performance against them. I found Chloe by the bar. I put a hand to my forehead, letting my fake smile finally falter, replacing it with a look of pale, fragile exhaustion. "Chloe," I said, my voice a little weak, "I'm so sorry." Her face immediately shifted into a mask of concern. "What is it, sweetie? Are you okay?" I think it's all just a bit much," I said, gesturing vaguely at the happy, noisy room, the speeches, seeing everyone, all the goodbyes. "It's all so wonderful, but it's a little overwhelming. I feel a little bit faint." It was the perfect excuse. It was completely believable. Of course, their beautiful, heartfelt speeches had been too much for my fragile, emotional heart to bear. Of course, I was overwhelmed by their love. "Oh, you poor thing," she said, immediately taking my arm. "Of course, you are. We shouldn't have made such a big production of it all. Here, sit down. Do you need some water?" "No," I said, shaking my head weakly. I think I just need to go home. Lie down. I feel so terrible for leaving my own party early." "Don't you dare feel terrible," she commanded, her voice full of false authority. You've had a huge emotional night. We completely understand. Right, guys. She turned to Liam and Olivia, who had drifted over, their faces also etched with perfect concern. Of course, Liam said, go home, Maya, get some rest. We'll close the party down for you, Olivia added with a sweet smile. It was my get-out-of-jail-free card, my escape hatch. The final goodbyes were the worst part. They insisted on walking me to the door, a protective phalanx of fake friendship. They each hugged me one last time. We love you, Chloe whispered, her lips close to my ear. Call us when you get home so we know you're safe, Liam said. Feel better, Olivia added. I endured their touch. I endured their lies. I nodded. I whispered my thanks. And then I turned and pushed my way out of the noisy, crowded bar and into the cool, clean, blessedly empty night air. I was free. I stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, just breathing. The cold air felt incredible on my hot face. I had survived. I had made it through the longest 2 hours of my life. My smile, the longest, most painful smile I had ever held, finally dissolved, my face collapsing into a blank, hard mask. They had no idea. They were still inside, probably laughing at me already, celebrating my departure. They thought they were safe. They thought their secret was safe. They had no idea that I was now holding it in my hand, and I was about to use it to burn their entire world to the ground. The party was over, but my performance was just getting started. I drove home to my empty apartment in a state of surreal, disconnected calm. The tears were gone. The shock had been replaced by a strange, buzzing energy, like the air after a lightning strike. The world outside my car windows was the same streetlights, the same late-night traffic, but my own internal landscape had been razed to the ground. There was nothing left but smoking ruins. I walked into my apartment, the one that was 90% packed into cardboard boxes. The hollow echo of my footsteps was the only sound. I looked at the boxes labeled kitchen, books, New York dreams. It all felt like it belonged to a different person, to a naive, happy woman who had died an hour ago in a sticky bar booth. I sank onto the floor, my back against the bare wall, and I let the full weight of the betrayal wash over me. It wasn't just a simple act of backstabbing. It was the sheer artistry of their deception that broke me. The loving speeches, the tearful hugs, the decade of shared history they had weaponized against me. They hadn't just lied. They had created an entire fictional universe with me at the center. Also, they could laugh at me behind my back. They weren't just frenemies. They were sociopaths. As I sat there in the dark, a new feeling began to bubble up through the grief. It was a cold, hard, and deeply satisfying anger, a righteous fury. I thought about them, still at the bar. They would be dissecting my emotional departure. Chloe would be basking in the glory of her phenomenal acting performance. They would be laughing about how I had fallen for it all. Hook, line, and sinker. They would tell the story for years, the hilarious tale of their gullible friend Maya and her dramatic, tearful goodbye. They thought they had won. They thought they had gotten rid of me, the successful friend whose perfect life had made them feel inadequate. They thought I would move to New York, blissfully ignorant, and they would be free. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't let that happen. Leaving silently would be their victory. It would validate their narrative. The story would be that I was the overly emotional, unstable friend who couldn't handle a loving goodbye. No, I couldn't let them be the authors of my final chapter in this city. The story wasn't over. I had to write the ending myself. An idea, as sharp and as clear as a shard of glass, formed in my mind. It was terrifying. It was dramatic. And it was perfect. I stood up. The hollowed-out victim was gone. In her place was a woman with a plan. I walked back out of my apartment, got into my car, and I drove back to the bar. The drive this time was different. I wasn't a sad friend leaving a party. I was a soldier heading back to the battlefield. My hands were steady on the wheel. My mind was a calm, cold machine. I knew exactly what I had to do. The bouncer at the front door of the Salty Dog looked at me in surprise as I walked back in. "Forget something?" he asked. "You have no idea," I said with a smile that probably looked terrifying. I walked back towards the private room. I could hear the music, the laughter, They were still celebrating. Good. I pushed the door open. The scene was just as I had left it, a loud, happy, drunken party. My re-entrance caused a ripple. A few friends saw me and looked confused. Then Chloe saw me. She was in the middle of a story, a drink in her hand. Her face went through a rapid series of emotions: surprise, then annoyance, then a flash of panic. She thought I had come back to have a hysterical, crying fit. She thought she was going to have to manage me. She put on her concerned face and started walking towards me. Maya, honey, what's wrong? Did you forget your purse? I ignored her. I walked past her, my eyes fixed on the small, makeshift stage where they had stood to deliver their eulogies to our friendship. The microphone was still on its stand. I stepped onto the stage and took the microphone. The room, noticing the strange turn of events, began to quiet down. The music faltered. All eyes were on me. "Hi, everyone," I said into the mic. My voice didn't shake. It was as clear and as steady as a bell. "Sorry to interrupt the party. I had to come back. I felt like I didn't get to say a proper thank you." I looked out at the crowd, my gaze sweeping over them until it landed on the three of them, Chloe, Liam, and Olivia, who were now standing together, watching me with looks of wary confusion. The speeches earlier were just so incredibly moving. I continued, my voice full of a chilling, sweet sincerity. I was so overwhelmed by the love in this room. I had to step out to catch my breath. It's a lot to take in. The depth of my friends' feelings for me. I smiled directly at Chloe. She smiled back weakly, uncertainly. But while I was sitting there, still teary-eyed from all the beautiful words, I went on. I happened to glance down at my phone, and I saw some messages. From a group chat I'm not in. It's called The Trinity, which is adorable, and in it, my three dearest friends had some additional thoughts about my departure that they wanted to share in the moment. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The confusion turned to a tense, electric silence. I saw Chloe's face go from wary to ashen. Liam and Olivia looked at each other in pure, dawning horror. They knew. I took out my phone. I unlocked it. "I'd like to share them with you," I said, my voice dropping the pretense of sweetness, becoming cold and factual, so that we can all appreciate the true, unfiltered depth of their affection for me. I held the phone up to the microphone. The feedback squealed for a second, and then I began to read. From Chloe, I announced, my voice echoing through the silent room. "OMG, she's actually crying. I am a phenomenal actress." A collective gasp went through the crowd. I saw several of my other friends stare at Chloe, their mouths agape. Chloe looked like she had been turned to stone. From Liam, I continued, my voice a relentless, steady metronome of their doom. "Lol, you really laid it on thick. The one we all want to be when we grow up." Liam looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. From Olivia, I read on. "I almost broke when you said that. Was trying so hard not to laugh." Olivia just buried her face in her hands. And then, a few more from my best friend. "Chloe, the phenomenal actress," I said, my eyes finding hers in the crowd. She was staring at me now with pure, undiluted hatred. She writes, "Guys, shut up. She'll see. But seriously, thank God she's finally leaving. I can't take another year of her perfect life." The final message was from Liam. I read it with slow, deliberate precision. And Liam replies, "For real, countdown till we get our city back starts now." I finished reading. I lowered the phone. The silence in the room was a living entity. It was thick with their shame, their exposure, their utter and complete social annihilation. They had been unmasked in front of everyone they knew. I let them hang in that silence for a long, agonizing moment. Then, I raised my phone again. "So," I said, my voice still calm, still controlled, "as the first official act of my new life in New York, a life you are all clearly so thrilled for me to begin, I'd like to start by shedding some dead weight." I looked down at my phone, my thumb moving across the screen. "Chloe," I said, looking up at her, "you're blocked." I pressed the button. I then went to her contact info, and "You're deleted." I pressed it again. Her face crumpled. "Liam," I said, my gaze shifting to him. He wouldn't look at me. "You're blocked and deleted." "Olivia," I said to the top of her bowed head, "you're blocked and deleted." I then went to my social media apps. and for good measure, unfriended, unfollowed, and erased. I made a final, decisive swipe on my screen. There, all clean. I put my phone back in my purse. I looked out at the sea of stunned, silent faces. To everyone else, I said, my voice softening for the first time. Thank you for your genuine friendship over the years. I will cherish the real memories. I wish you all the very best. I placed the microphone carefully back on its stand. Have a good night, I said, and I turned, stepped off the stage, and walked out of that room. I walked past the frozen statues of my former friends. I walked through the parted sea of our shocked acquaintances. I walked out of the bar, out into the cool night air, and I did not look back. I had walked in as the guest of honor at my own going-away party. I walked out as the architect of their social funeral, and I had never felt so free in my entire life. I walked out of the Salty Dog for the second and final time, and the night air felt different. An hour ago, it had been a cool relief from a suffocating room. Now, it was the clean, crisp, exhilarating air of a whole new world. I had walked into that bar as Maya, the beloved friend. I had discovered I was Maya, the fool, and I had walked out as Maya, the woman who had just set fire to a decade of lies, and walked away without getting burned. The silence on my phone was a blessing. The constant buzz of notifications that had been my life for 10 years was gone. The group chats, the inside jokes, the endless stream of their validation and their poison, it was all gone. My phone was just a quiet piece of glass and metal in my hand again. As I was walking to my car, it lit up one last time. For a heart-stopping second, I thought one of them had found a way to get through, but it wasn't them. It was a text from another friend, Amy, a woman who had been at the party but was outside of our immediate, toxic foursome. Amy, OMG Maya, I am speechless. And so proud of you. I never liked her. Call me tomorrow, or whenever. I'm here. A real tear, a genuine tear of gratitude, slid down my cheek. I wasn't entirely alone after all. The real people see the real things. The next day was a blur of methodical erasure. I woke up on an air mattress in my empty apartment, and I felt light. The grief for the friendship I thought I had was still there, a phantom limb that would ache from time to time, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of liberation. The burden of their friendship, I was beginning to realize, had been heavier than I ever knew. My target was the box labeled important. I opened it and took out the bubble-wrapped picture frame. I unwrapped it and looked at the photo one last time. The four of us on the beach, all suntanned smiles and easy camaraderie. It looked like a stock photo for a brochure on perfect friendships. A perfect, beautiful lie. I slid the back off the frame, took out the photograph, and I ripped it into 4 neat pieces, one for each of us. I let the pieces flutter into the trash can. Then I took the empty frame, polished the glass, and set it on my empty mantelpiece. It was a reminder that a life, like a frame, is still beautiful and valuable even when you remove the picture that you thought was supposed to be in it. It was waiting for a new picture, a better one. The drive to New York a few days later was not the sad, tearful affair I had anticipated. I didn't spend the 15 hours on the road mourning what I had left behind. I spent it feeling the exhilarating rush of a prisoner who has just staged a successful jailbreak. Every mile I put between me and my old city felt like another chain breaking. I wasn't leaving my family behind. I was driving towards my real life, a life that would be authentically, unapologetically, and completely my own. I had shed 1,000 pounds of emotional baggage in one fiery night. And now, my car felt like it could fly. A year has passed. The view from my apartment window is no longer of the quiet, familiar streets I grew up on, but of the frantic, electric, and endlessly beautiful chaos of the Upper West Side. My life here is everything I dreamed it would be, and nothing like I expected. My job at the Met is a daily exercise in awe. I get to walk through its hushed, grand halls before the public arrives. I get to stand inches away from the brushstrokes of Rembrandt, to see the soul of a Vermeer portrait up close. My days are filled with research, with passionate debates about attribution and provenance, with the quiet, scholarly work that I love. I recently co-curated an exhibition on the use of shadow in Baroque portraiture, And seeing my name on the museum wall was a moment of validation so profound, it made all the drama of the past year feel like a distant, insignificant dream. I have friends here, new friends. My best friend now is a woman named Sarah, another curator in a different department. Our friendship isn't built on a decade of shared history and inside jokes. It's built on a shared passion for art, a mutual respect for each other's minds, and a simple, easy comfort. We get coffee and argue about Caravaggio. We go to gallery openings and make fun of pretentious artists. We talk about our work, our ambitions, our lives. Our conversations are not laced with the passive-aggressive digs and subtle power plays I had mistaken for intimacy for so long. They are just real. The aha moment for me was a few months ago. I got a small but significant promotion at work. The first person I told was Sarah. Her reaction was instantaneous and pure. Her face lit up. She let out a genuine whoop of joy, and she immediately insisted on taking me out for celebratory drinks. There was no flicker of jealousy, no backhanded compliment, no hint of resentment. There was only pure, unadulterated happiness for my success, and in that moment, I finally understood what real friendship was supposed to feel like. I hear things, sometimes, about my old life. Amy, my real friend from back home, gives me the occasional update. The story of my going away party, of the unfriending, has apparently become something of a local legend. The fallout, she said, was spectacular. Their tight-knit group of mutual friends imploded, people took sides, and very few people took theirs. Their carefully constructed social world, which had been built with me as the convenient, successful but not threatening centerpiece, collapsed without me, Chloe, whose entire identity was wrapped up in being the charismatic queen bee, lost her court, her social power, which she wielded like a weapon, was gone. Liam and Olivia, as a couple, became social pariahs, forever branded by their public act of duplicity. Their relationship, I heard, became strained under the weight of their shared shame. They got what they wanted, a city without me in it. I just don't think it turned out to be the paradise they were expecting. I don't feel joy at their misfortune, but I don't feel pity either. I just feel a quiet sense of finality. They built a house of cards on a foundation of lies, and I was the one card holding the whole thing up. When I removed myself, the entire structure collapsed, as it was always meant to. I've learned that jealousy is a strange and insidious poison. It makes people see your success not as something to be celebrated, but as a personal failure on their part. I was so afraid of losing my anchors, my support system, that I never stopped to realize that they weren't anchors holding me steady. They were anchors holding me down. They didn't want me to sail off to new, exciting oceans. They wanted me to stay in their shallow, safe little harbor forever, because my success made the water in their own harbor seem a little too murky, a little too still. The most empowering moment of this entire story wasn't when I read their texts aloud. It wasn't when I blocked their numbers. It was the moment in my empty apartment when I made the decision to go back to that bar. It was the moment I decided to stop being a victim of their narrative and to become the author of my own. It was the moment I chose to fight for my own truth, for my own dignity, instead of just quietly slinking away in shame. And so, this is my final word. To anyone out there who has ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most, friendship breakups can be just as devastating as romantic ones, sometimes even more so, because it's a loss of not just one person, but of a whole world you built together. But you will survive. You will walk out of the wreckage, and you will build a new world, a better one with stronger foundations, and with people who will help you lay the bricks instead of trying to knock them down. Thank you for being with me on this crazy journey. If you've ever had to perform a real-life unfriending to protect your own peace, I want to hear about it. Your story of strength deserves to be heard. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in the power of a fresh start. And remember, it is far better to have one true friend who celebrates your light than a dozen who are secretly waiting for the chance to blow out your candle. Choose your circle wisely, and never, ever be afraid to be the one to light the match.